Okay, we talked about this already in the previous chapters. Real estate is a bundle of rights. So a right to use the property as you see fit, a right to pass it on to others, a right to have a mortgage on it, and so forth. Most of the time we're looking at a fee simple ownership, meaning you actually own the right to the property. Sometimes you're leasing it. You may make a conditional offer. Very famous example of that here in Houston, Memorial Park. The estate of Imahog, very famous philanthropist here in Houston, left Memorial Park to the public with this condition: you can never drill for oil on Memorial Park, or you will lose the real estate and go to a different charity. Why did she do that? Because the Hogg family made their money in timber before oil was a big deal. But her lifetime gap, she lived a very long time, her lifetime gapped over the oil industry in Texas and displaced kind of the timber industry. So there's a little rivalry there. I don't think really would have made a big difference. But of course, at the time she was a young person, drilling for oil was a pretty nasty process. A lot, we can't afford to waste that much oil today. So remember the old famous things with gushers and all that. That's you get the Environmental Protection Agency to do that. That's not happening today. So conditional fee if you do not have all of the rights to the property. One of those can be a life estate. So you own a house and you get married, but you had children from prior marriage. You want the house to go to your children, so that you say to your current wife, I'm going to give you a life estate. When I die, you can stay in the house as long as you pay the taxes and keep it up. Once you move out or pass away, that house then goes to my children, not your children. Life estate, very straightforward. It used to be a bigger deal in the past, but I think it's kind of coming back around because we have so many mixed family arrangements, which makes the life estate a little more relevant. Remainders and reversions. If you mess up and it comes back because you violated a condition, that's going to be it's going to come back to you is the termination of a life estate. But a reversion is if you violate the life estate or you move out or something before you die. So you don't make it to the end of your lifetime. We mentioned easements and licenses a few minutes ago. The types of ownership are pretty common. We have tenancy in common, which is two people who are not necessarily husband and wife own the property. You have joint tenancy, and you have tenancy by the entirety. Tenancy by the entirety is generally spouses. And what you have here is a joint tenancy is usually our intent is that when one person dies, the other person takes the property. Tenancy in common, when one person dies, their heirs take the property. Okay, so keep in mind the difference between tenancy in common, which is defined right here. Joint tenancy, you have the right to survivorship. In my own family, we had that happen. My sister and my mom were structured as joint tenants. When my mom passed away, my sister became automatically ownership of the family home. We did that on purpose to make sure that one of our other siblings didn't mess with the estate. Tenancy by entirety is husband and wife in a traditional marriage ownership, and a fading interest in America today. We mentioned zoning and other limitations already. Keeping in mind, Houston, the only major city in America without zoning. Of course, we do have deed restrictions. We also have other statutory limits on terms of number of drops. I know a big hot spot for all of our area. That's interesting. All of our area here is the number of water taps. So the city can control how many units you can build on the property by telling you how many water taps you can have. So, although they've been expanding that to a ridiculous level without building more water, so I think that's about to show off big time. One of the ways that you can gain real estate is squatters' rights. If you read about that in high school history books about it, well, in Kansas and Oklahoma, claim your 40 acres. Well, that's occupancy. Transfer by deed, that's the most common way we get real estate. And description of the land, description of who's getting it, who's giving it, and so forth. Recording the deed, usually there's designated deed records down at the courthouse. One of the most interesting ones is something called adverse possession. Adverse possession is defined in each state. In some states it's as little as 5 years. I was asked to consult with a family member of mine who's in Delaware. 20 years in Delaware, longest I've ever seen. Usually it's either 5 or 10 years, so it goes state by state. This is where open and obvious you obtain somebody else's real estate deliberately. And I must admit I am one of them. Because I bought a house in Virginia that I still rent out, and when they put the fence in, they put the fence around the tree this way instead of around it this way. So I acquired about 2 square feet of my neighbor's property. And that fence has been up there about 20 years now. So I own those 2 square feet by adverse possession. Open and obvious. You can stand, my neighbor could stand in their backyard and see it. If they were on track with things, they would have said, whoa, wait a minute. Supposed to be over here, not over there, and all that. They could have thought about it, or they could have required me to license it. If I have any acknowledgement of the other person's rights, it goes away. For instance, you move into a property by tenancy, you lease a property, you cannot acquire it by adverse possession because you entered with rights. Even if you squat later, it's squatting, it's not actually adverse possession. So you actually have to enter the property with the intent to control the property, or to fence it in, or take responsibility. Now, lots of people take, big pieces of real estate. Some people in subdivisions, they go in and extend their back fence into an easement behind the property. Some of those are effective, some of those are not. Generally speaking, you cannot acquire real estate against a utility company and things like that, or a public easement. You can't acquire real estate against the public. So a lot of rules in this area, but a very interesting way to acquire real estate. Is that raining? Oh, okay, that's right. It's swinging around and exciting. Constructive eviction, I almost ran into that today. My garage apartment tenants had no air conditioning until about 5 o'clock this afternoon. They were unhappy campers. That probably wouldn't make it. We called the AC guys right away, came out and fixed it in a few hours. It took them a few hours to fix it. But that's not constructive eviction. On the other hand, I was in Boston, as I mentioned, it was 33 degrees. A couple nights I was up there. And you don't have heat in Boston, you got a constructive eviction. They go live in a hotel and send you the bill and stuff like that. So heat generally overcomes air conditioning. I think here in Houston we can probably argue air conditioning more in a day or two. Landlords need to get out there and fix things. Generally speaking, leases, we prohibit assignment without permission. That should be binding. When you are renting property, as I mentioned, with the guy that died in place owing rent, technically we had a lien on all of his personal property in the house we were renting, our company was renting. So what happens there is that we could take the personal property and we could have an auction and sell it. Generally speaking, not a very worthwhile way to do things. Again, if you're able to work it out with the family, that's the right thing to do. And then at the end, give the security deposit back or take it if they leave the property a mess. That's pretty common. Here is our key element here. Warranty of habitability. Means the sewer system must work. The place is not overrun with vermin. Heat is generally a requirement. Air conditioning is considered optional, but that is not unduly unsafe during an occupation. Warranty of habitability. We hypothecate real estate a fair amount. We call that a deed of trust. We try and get, we give the mortgage company our deed of trust. By the way, we're the mortgagor. Keep that in mind. Mortgagee is the person that makes us the mortgage. I know it sounds a little backwards, but we own the real estate. We are mortgaging it, mortgagors to the mortgagee, the mortgage company. Keep that in mind because it's back. The OR and the EE is kind of backwards to what you're used to. And mortgagor's rights are pretty straightforward. When you get done, make sure you get a release of your mortgage. I was selling a $10 million property. The late 2015, they couldn't find the release of their $1 million mortgage from 20 years earlier. We were able to finesse it, but it wasn't fun.
Was the bank still in business that?
Yeah, and they couldn't find the paperwork. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a big bank like Chase or Bank of America.
Okay.
Yeah, and they couldn't find the paperwork. And we knew they paid it off, they just hadn't paid attention. So we do encourage people, if you pay off a mortgage, I've paid off some mortgages. Make sure you
Happens more than anything.
keep track of your paperwork. You may get asked. Deed of trust, as we mentioned, deed of trust is the document that establishes the mortgage. Generally speaking, there are two sets of records down at the deed records. Deeds, which is who owns it, that's you. The deed of trust records, that's who your mortgage company is, okay? Two parallel sets. Third set, lien records. Do you have a lien on your property? Maybe you had air conditioning put in, you didn't pay for it. They put a mechanic's lien on your property. That's a third registry. So look for 3 different registries. Foreclosure, we all know, means they yanked the deed and deed of trust because we didn't pay the mortgage. And that's not a good thing. Usually all of the debtors get to take the proceeds in order. Unfortunately, most of the time if your property gets foreclosed, the first lien holder, the first mortgage company gets everything. Nobody else gets anything. That's pretty common. In an unusual situation, if there's a little bit more money left, a second lien holder or a mechanic's lien might get satisfied. Very, very rare for the underlying owner to get any equity back. Because if there was equity in it, they would have sold it already. So it's pretty strict.